Welcome back, friend. This is Tea Time with Sweet, where we believe in the mess, the whole mess, and nothing but the mess, so help us Jesus Levante. You might want to get out your whiteboard. I call this category Kissing Cousins, and things tend to get a little bit confusing. I will go ahead and say it before you do. It's not a family tree, it's a wreath. I mean, no branches. Like and subscribe here, head over to TikTok and follow over there. And if you have something that you would like to submit, you can send it to me at teatimewithsweet@gmail.com. Let's get into it. Background on my dad's mom's family. My great-grandfather was the illegitimate son of a wealthy man in the old country. We even have pictures of him and my great-grandfather together. Seems meaningless now, but that tidbit comes back later. His mom moves him to the U.S., where she married a man and changes my great-grandfather's last name to his stepfather's name. I bet you that's exactly where she fucked up. Now, his mother dies when he's 15. And she took all the important information with her. I know she did. So he knows no history of his birth father. What'd I say? His stepfather introduces him to a beautiful woman who was sent to family so she could find a husband. He is 27 when they get married. She is 19. The year is 1904. Now fast forward 5 sons and a daughter later, my great-grandfather is about to go to jail for bootlegging. My great-grandmother stumbles across a picture of my great-grandfather and her father when my great-grandfather was a baby. She said it couldn't have been because that was her father. They fought over this for years. Now years later, grandmother tells this story to me and my siblings, claims it's bogus and couldn't have any truth to it. Jesus Levante, keep me near the cross. That year, we got everybody ancestry DNA test. Let's just say these tests revealed a whole new level of mess. We get the results, and my grandmother's parents were revealed to be half-siblings and share a common father. Y'all just couldn't let y'all grandma live in peace. It also revealed 4 of my dad's cousins on his mother's side share the same father and not the same mother. Later it came out my great-uncle, the bachelor, slept with all 4 of his brother's wives. I guess all of his brothers knew because they had chased him out of town. He disappears, never to be seen again, or so we thought, when I uncovered more of his children, who were my mother's only brother and her cousins. My great-uncle apparently had a thing for sisters because he slept with my grandmother and her sisters. This is like the umpteenth man that we've read about to run through some sisters like the Tomb Raider. That same DNA test revealed that my same great-great-grandfather, who died in 1930, had another daughter out there who was unknown. That's until my dad's father, who was stationed in Germany, got her pregnant and had a son. She died giving birth. My grandfather takes him back to the U.S. and marries my grandmother 2 years later in 1949. So when the DNA test came back, my dad and my uncle are cousin brother siblings. I know I ask this all the time and there's no real answer, but why though? The title alone makes me want to have a drink, and it's entirely too early for that. Anyway, it reads, me, my older sister, and my sister's daughter, my niece, share a baby daddy. Well, to start, I got pregnant with my son in 2015, and I had gotten into a fist fight and got assault charges. So I had to go to jail, and I went to jail pregnant, and I was in jail for 7 months. While I was incarcerated, the man that I was pregnant by started sleeping with my sister, and I had no clue. But when I got out of jail, my sister was pregnant, she says anyways. I ended up having my son a couple of days after I got out of jail, and then my sister decided that she was keeping this kid that she was pregnant with. I was going to ask why you ain't fight your sister, but you just had a baby and you just got out of jail on assault charges, so don't do that, okay? I will say though, I'm surprised your sister tried you because clearly you are with the shits. So of course I had nothing to say to her or him. Then I eventually forgave her about a year ago because she got a dose of her own medicine when her daughter, her oldest daughter, who was 23, decided that she was going to have sex with the same man that me and my sister both already have a child with, and she just had his second kid. My niece just had her second child with this man. The end. Have I gotten my life together yet? No. Am I going to tell this story again? Also no. But I'm going to break down this visual diagram like I promised. Okay, so I always try to do the videos from the point of view of the person that sent it. So that's why you have parents up here at the top. They're not really necessary, but anyway. You see here, black dotted lines means they're siblings. So everybody connected by a black dotted line is a sibling. Right here, the solid colored lines, that represents offspring. So basically, you got their son, the sister's son with the sister's child with the baby dad, and then the niece, who is the sister's child by someone else. This is the area in which it gets tricky because after staring at it for quite some time, I realized that the niece and her children share a sibling. The niece's children are this child's siblings on their daddy's side and their aunt and uncles on their mama's side. I'm gonna let you stare at it a little bit more. These two kids here are cousins on their mama's side, but siblings on their daddy's side. I feel like there's so many other combinations I can make if I stare at it long enough, but you get the gist. It don't.
Future generations are.
I'm not going to my grandparents' house because it get weird over there because my niece / half sister, like, what are we talking about here? What are we
What do you call
about?
her? What do we call her?
My sister's with my sister's child. And like, I get that that's what's happening here, and I understand that it's biologically possible, but my brain will not allow me to, not a Neester. Please get out of my I'm calling the cops.
Where's my tissues? Oh my God. Oh, okay. You won the internet.
A never and a new.
Shut up. Oh my God. Okay. Oh, thanks for that. Whoever said that, thank you.
Y'all really be a part of family circles. Try to follow, child. So let's take this back to the 1940s. Two sisters, let's call them Ruth and Sarah, married two brothers, let's call them Ron and Bobby. Y'all went out of your way to make your family tree a circle. Ruth and Ron get married shortly after Sarah and Bobby get married. They have children. Since they are cousins on both sides, they are double first cousins. Sarah and Bobby have baby Eliza. Ron and Ruth have baby Rebecca. Eliza is significantly older than Rebecca. Eliza starts dating Walter. Walter sleeps with and impregnates Rebecca. Let's call that baby Richard. Oh my God. I want everybody to stop sleeping with a partner's sibling, like so bad. Eliza and Walter get married and have baby George, who is 11 months younger than Richard. Richard meets Deborah and has baby Samantha. Deborah disappears off the face of the earth until 11 years later when George has a baby by her and marries her. Let's call that baby Beth. So Samantha and Beth are first cousins, second cousins, sisters, and stepsisters. The family tree literally looks like a Venn diagram. And y'all did it on purpose. Okay, I'm gonna stop running my mouth. I'm gonna go make this diagram. Y'all know the routine. If you want the complete backstory, you gotta go back and watch the original video. Okay, so sisters, Ruth and Sarah. Married brothers, Ron and Bobby. Okay, now this is where the cousins all start having kids by the same people, so I'm gonna work this out. I'll be right back. Child, Walter and his messy self. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Remember, you had the siblings, Ruth and Sarah, who married the brothers, Ron and Bobby. Walter came out of nowhere, so now these first cousins got kids by the same man, who then had kids by the same woman, and you got Samantha and Beth. I really need to know how Deborah disappeared for like 11 years because she already had a baby with Richard. That's neither here nor there because she came back, married George, and had Beth. So now you got these two who are first cousins, half sisters, and also stepsisters. Just like how these two are second cousins, half brothers, and stepbrothers. Okay, now if you take away the sets of siblings that married each other, because apparently y'all do that all the time, you got your two sets of Venn diagrams. So you got your first set, and then Richard and George break out and make a whole diagram of their own with disappearing Deborah. My biological father came in my life about 6 years ago, and when he did, my mother thought it was necessary for me to know a little history about his side of the family. So I have 9 brothers and 1 sister. I was a little confused as I knew only of 8 brothers until my mom informed me that my father and his first cousin were messing around and she got pregnant. Like, can we all agree to just not? Her boyfriend at the time was incarcerated, but also believed that he was the father. She had the baby within a week of him coming home, but he realized that this little boy looked nothing like him, but exactly like my father, her first cousin. He was so upset about that, he damn near told the whole projects that they were messing around with each other. Well, that's embarrassing. Little did he know my grandmother, my father's mother, had pretended to be pregnant the whole 9 months. She went the whole 9, fake baby bump and all, until this secret was let out the cage. She moved my brother, who thinks he's my uncle, back to New York where she's originally from. This isn't the first time that somebody has walked around pretending to be full-blown pregnant, and I just think that that is the most ridiculous shenanigan. Walking around just acting dramatic. Whole time, ain't nothing wrong with you. Fast forward to the present, he's now 28 years old and fighting cancer, and it eats me up to come around him or even call him uncle because my no good father and his sisters won't tell him that he's not their siblings but my father's second born son. I be wanting to lay the cards on the table so bad, especially now knowing what he's going through and that he just had his first baby, but it just doesn't feel like it should come from me. Also, I have a cousin on my mother's side who believes my brother/uncle to be her brother because the man who is supposed to be his father is her father, and she still has no clue that this man is not related to her in any kind of way. So that was a mess. But I am going to say, like, don't stress your brother out any more than he needs to be right now. Like, I get that you feel like he should know, but, like, do you honestly think that's what he wants to know right now? I honestly could go my whole life not knowing that my parents were first cousins. Because, like, even though I didn't do it, like, I feel like the product of weird. And I know I always say, like, spill the tea, stir the pot, shake the table. But if you come to me with some bullshit like that after I just had my first child and I'm battling cancer, I'ma whoop your ass. Stay messy. And always spill the tea. Except with this one, 0 out of 10, would not recommend. My grandma has 7 kids, the youngest of which is my biological father. He's the only one out of the 7 who isn't her first husband's child. My grandma met my grandpa at a family reunion. Not today. No. My grandma met my grandpa at a family reunion and he took in her and all 6 of her kids. My bio grandpa is her distant cousin. While my grandma was pregnant with my dad, my grandpa got another woman pregnant and they both gave birth about 3 months apart. So in case you missed it, her biological grandfather is the one she met at the family reunion. Her dad is that guy's only kid with her grandma. Her grandma already had 6 other children from another marriage when she met him. Listen, guys, sometimes you have to let this thing play on a loop a couple times before you get it, and that is okay. Fast forward to about 13 years later, and my aunt, my grandma's first daughter, joined the military and was stationed somewhere overseas. Here's where the story starts getting weirder. So you're telling me that it gets weirder than finding your husband at a family reunion? Okay. Your grandma found the one place worse than a Baptist church to go looking for a husband. My aunt started writing to my grandpa while she was stationed overseas and they fell in love. You are correct, things got even more weird very fast. When she came back, they secretly got married and only told people of the affair after my aunt fell pregnant. They had 3 children together, so my dad grew up calling his siblings brother, nephew, or niece, sister. We call that a niester here. My grandpa divorced my aunt and has since had 3 more children with multiple women. Anyway, that's the story of my Uncle Grandpa. What's very wild to me is that a lot of these like Uncle Grandpa, bruz and niester situations occur on purpose. Like, I don't care whose son you are. I don't care whose son you're not. If I meet you at a family reunion, you are my cousin and I just can't. I don't care how far out you are. Distant cousin? Never heard of her. It's not my business, but I be reading some of these and I be stressed. This is titled, Brother and Sis Had My Nephew. Y'all come into this inbox and choose violence every time. My brother and sister had a kid together. I drank before this, so if that's your jam, go ahead and do that now. Let me explain. My mom had my one older sister, and my dad had my older brother and older sister, both from previous relationships. My dad and mom got together, never married, and had me and my younger sister. I already know this is going to lead to some, but they're not blood related BS, and I don't care. Because why? There are so many people on this planet, like so many. So many people that our planet is actually getting sick of us. So again, why? My brother went to jail for 7 years, and when he got out, actually married my older sister from my mom and had a child together, my nephew. So yeah, my brother and my sister had a child together. Even though they aren't related, it's still weird to me. Now, what did your brother do 7 years for? Because sis, you don't think you could have found a better life with nobody else? Girl, and boy too, because what the hell? Did y'all go to that wedding? Because I'm telling you right now, I'm not going. Keep it. Keep your foolishness. When 23andMe goes out of business, I know who to blame. Let your family tree grow some branches, please. My uncle's kids are also his nieces and nephews. Y'all always do this. Okay, so about 8 years ago, I was pregnant with my oldest and I get a call from my dad. He says, I have something to tell you, but you have to promise you won't get upset or cry. I honestly expected him to say he had cancer or he was dying because cancer and health issues run in our family. Anyways, he tells me I have an older brother. I'm like, I know, I have two. And he said, no, an even older brother. And I was shook. He explained the situation and how he had no clue about him. The brother was like 31 at the time. Long story short, the way my dad found out is my brother was dating my uncle's ex-wife, my dad's brother. My uncle had 2 kids with her and raised her son too, and this woman has tried to stay in our family somehow as long as I can remember. I even lived with her for a short time before all this happened. No one in my family likes her. Well, come to find out, my brother has known his whole life that my dad was his dad, but his mother is crazy and he couldn't say anything and even grew up in the same town as my whole family. So your brother knew he was dating his auntie. What part of the daddy issues game is that? Fast forward, he ended up marrying my uncle's ex-wife, so my cousins became my nephews and nieces, and my uncle's kids are his nieces and nephews. My dad tried to have a relationship with him, but the only time he called was when he needed money. Our Nana was in the hospital dying, and he didn't ask about her. He just wanted some money. That was my dad's last straw. As far as I know, they really don't talk anymore. Oh, and did I mention, my brother and this woman are also cousins on his mom's side, like between first and third cousins. Thank God they can't have any kids together. You know the fuck what? Stop passing y'all spouses around and stop dating your cousin. I too come from a small town where everybody is my cousin. You leave them boys alone. Dating your cousins is a no-no. I do have a personal tale about dating cousins, but that's another story for another day. Hey girl, I was hesitant to tell this story, but my mom recently brought it up and I decided to just go for it. I'm a 23-year-old single mom of a 2-year-old boy. I dated his father for 2 years before I got pregnant. His mother absolutely hated me, and I always wondered why, seeing as I was always nice and respectful to her. When we found out I was pregnant, he asked me to move in with him. I moved in, and 2 weeks later, his mom moved in. I thought it was some weird mama's boy shit going on, but I didn't entertain it. He always got quiet when she was around, and he compared me to her a lot. Well, one day I felt very sick and decided to leave work early. I pulled into the front. I usually went through the back to the garage and ran into the house as quickly as I could to get to the bathroom. As I opened the door, I heard sex noises. I creeped up the stairs and heard his voice and his mother's voice. Jesus Levante Christ. Did you go make the drink like I told you to? I bust through the door and they started scattering for their clothes. I ran from his house and drove all the way to my parents' house crying. When I checked my phone, he sent me one text saying, I'm so sorry. I want nothing to do with you and the baby. Don't come back. He shipped me my stuff and I haven't heard from him since then. Was he an adult? Because I feel like we need to call Olivia Benson. Detective Tutuola, at least. My favorite book is my email inbox. So I wanted to give you guys an update about Homegirl, her baby dad, and his mom. A lot of you guys asked about her and how she was doing now, and she did leave a comment, but comments get buried, so I wanted to make sure you guys heard. She's a happy single mom. She is in therapy. The baby's grandmother did try contacting her to have a relationship with the grandchild, but she hit her with that swift block, as she should have, and we love to see it. Sis, I just wanted to let you know that I really appreciate you sharing your story with all of us, and I'm very happy to hear that you're doing well and thriving. Unless you comment and let people know that it's you that the story is about, or you ask me specifically to tag you, I do not tag anyone. I do not say who sent them because I don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed or bombarded. Otherwise, people won't want to share their stories. Just thinking about how I spill tea all day, but also respect people's privacy. Two things can be true at once. Just the right amount of messy. So the original plan was to start off with something mild since I was just now coming back and everything. However, I have decided instead that I'm going to choose violence. Yes, this is tequila. Yes, this story does require it. And no, you cannot say I didn't tell you. The older generation of my family is a mess. My first cousins and I strive to break that curse. This is one of the worst of many stories. When I was 6, my 16-year-old aunt had a baby. I found out later that she hid the pregnancy for 9 months, and my grandmother and mother only found out when she was in labor. My cousin always asked us who his father was. I would ask my mother and she would tell me that he was a guy that ran off. I can already feel there's a lie in here. My aunt has since passed away. Fast forward to adulthood, my cousin was at dinner with some distant relatives, stress on the distant, that came to his town and wanted to reconnect. My cousin told us that the older man of the group asked him how was his dad. I told y'all that somebody was lying, but that old man know that boy don't know who his daddy is. Woo, these messy ass old people. See, I told y'all. Now I am purposefully pausing so you can go get your drink or roll whatever you need to get through this next part. My cousin finds out from this distant relative at dinner as an adult that his father all of these years had been our uncle, my aunt's brother. Okay, so he's been around us all of these years and y'all knew this? And who tells someone something like that at dinner? I can't. Tons of therapy for all of us. I need to give myself a trigger warning. But listen, Linda, let me tell you, because the list of men that I will allow around the children I don't even have yet, short. And women too. The only thing worse than the predators in the family are the people who know they're predators and let them slide. Not at my table. Enjoy your Thanksgiving dinner in jail. Come New Year's Eve, the only thing that will be clinking is your hands in cuffs behind bars. And also, messy ass old man, sir, if I did know who my father was, why on earth do you think I'd give a fuck how he was doing? Listen, I understand that being able to afford therapy is a luxury, and that is why I do not skip a single session. Sometimes I be in a great mood. I literally be paying this woman a kiki for now. My therapist thinks I'm funny too. Grandfather died prior to my birth, but I was raised around my great-grandmother as well as the remaining 5 of her children. My grandmother lived halfway across the state and had nothing to do with my great-grandmother or my great-aunts and uncles. When I was 7 years old, going through some papers in my great-aunt's basement, I came across a divorce decree for my grandmother and grandfather. It seems that they went through a messy divorce in the 60s during a time in which leaving your husband was seen as a sin against God. Because the court systems did not think a male child could be raised without a male figure in the house, the courts awarded custody of my father to my grandfather and custody of my aunt to my grandmother. I was literally never told this by anyone in my family. I brought it up to my great aunt, who basically told me that it was rude to sit around kicking up the past. So first I was like, wow, an auntie who believes in minding your business. But then I read it again and I'm like, no, she don't. Because she literally has boxes full of tea chilling in her basement. Of course she does. Side note, Happy New Year! Fast forward about 2 years and my great-grandmother dies. Despite having nothing to do with my grandfather's family since the divorce that I'm aware of, my grandmother comes to the funeral. Several times at the funeral, my much older cousins would come up to my grandmother and talk about her mother, my other great-grandmother, who had been dead for years, referring to her as auntie. I knew that it couldn't be their aunt because this woman was literally not related to my cousins. I got sent away to a children's room very quickly after that with my grandmother's Bible to read for entertainment. Unfortunately for them, I knew my grandmother kept a very detailed family tree in the back of her Bible. It took all of 5 minutes for me to realize that my grandmother's mother and my grandfather's father were brother and sisters, thus making my grandparents first cousins. Of course they are. I don't know what it is that I expected. But that's not even the messiest part of the story. Y'all, don't do this to me. Go ahead and stick a pin in this one because I'm going to have to make a part 2. Okay, fine. I'll give you guys part 2 now. My great-grandmother's estate was extensive, with children, grandchildren, nieces, and nephews all being named in the will, including my grandmother, who was my great-grandmother's daughter-in-law and niece. These fights in front of the lawyer dealing with the estate were loud and nasty, and I found out everyone's dirt because no one thought the quiet girl reading in a corner was actually listening to anything. You know what? Everyone assuming that I wasn't listening or couldn't hear them is honestly how I got my start as a messy auntie. I was a messy auntie before I was even an auntie. A true icon. 3 years into it all, and Lord knows I don't remember what started the fight, one of my cousins slaps my grandmother across the face and calls her a filthy lesbian and tells her to burn in hell with her lover. Chaos ensues, hair and earrings are lost, and in the chaos, I start reading the court documents prepared by my cousins about why my grandmother shouldn't be allowed to keep her share of the inheritance. I feel like we made this rule a long time ago, but like if you slap my grandmother, we gotta fight. Also, something tells me that this happened 3 hours into it all and not 3 years. It seems my grandmother's divorce occurred after she ran off to another state with her lesbian lover who she had been with since high school. My grandfather had married my grandmother at the request of the family to straighten her out and had tried to get the family to disown my grandmother after the divorce, which had mostly worked. The woman who I had grown up thinking was my grandmother's roommate was actually her lover and had been her entire life. And that's how I found out that my divorced grandmother / great aunt was a lesbian. First of all, Grandma, live your best life. Second, if your family was going to be completely disgusting and try to straighten her out, they could have at least found somebody other than her first cousin. Also, please tell me that we're not still believing the whole lifelong roommate thing at our big age, even though it's not my business. My dad always picked on my mom for being from the hills of Kentucky. My dad would always say, "Your family tree doesn't fork." Turns out, Daddy wasn't lying. This story was told to me by my dad and then confirmed by my mom. Side note, they are divorced and have been since 1986. My dad and mom were married in the summer of 1981, and for their honeymoon, they went to my mom's father's side of the family's reunion in Kentucky. They arrived at an aunt and uncle's house. This aunt and uncle were first cousins on their daddy's side, cue the banjos. They had like 6 kids. My mom had gone to the store with her aunt and my grandmother. My dad became terrified as my mother's cousins, quote, looked at my dad like he was the last piece of meat and they hadn't eaten in a month. That's 'cause your daddy was new blood. I forgot to mention that they, the offspring of the married cousins, did actually have some abnormalities and birth defects because their parents were so closely related. When my mom returned, my dad's words to her were, "Don't ever leave me with those people ever again." You know, I don't be wanting these kids to have defects or abnormalities, but this is the first time we've had someone say that the kids were actually affected by their parents being closely related. And something in my spirit says they are not the only ones. They can't be. I've never had the urge to go to Kentucky, but this just confirmed that I'm not missing anything. Because if my husband tried to take me to some bullshit reunion like that, I'm leaving. You can stay. I'll be at the hotel. I'm not doing this. Because you're going to want me to be there, but you also going to want me to act like there's nothing weird going on around me, and I just can't do that. It's not possible. Now, it's going to sound super complicated. Hear me all the way out to the end because I'm going to hook y'all up. I'll try to keep this as short as possible, but there's many players involved. I had just broke up with my girlfriend Heather because I came out as gay, figured I'd tie in how I'm related to the situation. Heather started to date a friend of hers named Blake. Blake would cycle through the same 3 girls, all in our friend group, Heather, Ariel, and Phoenix. What seemed like every other month, he'd go back and forth between them. This happened for years. Blake had children with all 3. Okay, now this is where it's going to sound like a hot, complicated mess, but like, hold on, I got you, I promise. Heather and Blake have Joe. Phoenix and Blake have Serenity. Ariel and Blake have Karen. Ariel and Jerry have Jade. Sarah and Jerry have Ashley. Sarah and Kyle have 4 kids together. Ariel and a random have Steve. Heather and Christian, who's Blake's younger brother, have 2 kids and are now married. Phoenix and Jerry have Ron. Phoenix and a random have 3 kids together. Stephanie and Christian have Kim, who was given up for adoption. Ariel and Christian did have a miscarriage, and they also added that Blake's father knocked up 2 women in 2015 who were the same age as his kids, so Joe's aunt is 3 years younger than he is. We got some brother-cousin shit going on. Moral of the story, come out early so you don't get caught up in the mess. Now I'm gonna break it down. Y'all, please get into and marvel at my grid. Let me back up so you can see. This is what it's giving. Now, Kyle's not too bad. This area right here is where I think the tussling goes down, okay? And you know, Heather is married, but she did marry her baby father's little brother. I'm trying to tell y'all, there is nothing y'all love more than a present. Keep sending in your submissions. I've got tons. I'm still going through them all, but don't let that stop you. Like I said, stay messy and always spill the tea.